Alright, my lovers, welcome back to Football Daily. Now today, it's a tough one because we need to talk about the Premier League's summer signings. Right then, we're 11 games into the new season, approaching 12. So we're approaching a quarter, is that right? 12, 24, 36. Yeah, we're approaching a quarter, right? Was my maths correct there? Oh, whatever. By now, we've seen most of those signings play some form of football, haven't we? So today, I thought I would rank how each club's major signings, their most expensive summer business, has done so far. Okay, this is literally just up to this point. It's not me saying how they're going to do in the future. Some of these ratings will obviously improve, but up to now, how have they performed? Now, before we get into it, I want to hear from you down below who has been the worst signing of the summer and who has been the best signing of the summer. I'm going to be in the comments for about the next hour, and I will be attempting to mention them on Sunday Vibes this week or next week. One of the two. Get in the comments. While you're down there, hit like, hit subscribe. You know the score. Okay, as you can see in front of us, we've got 5 tiers here. We've got smashing it, top tier, doing well, doing poorly, and having a whiff. That means somebody's having a stinker, absolutely underperforming. I just like the word whiff, to be honest with you. Up first, we've got Benjamin White. Let's not be calling him Ben anymore. It must be Benjamin after this.
So is it Ben or Benjamin?
It's actually Benjamin.
Yeah, because I noticed on your Twitter page, I've not looked at your Instagram page, but Twitter it's definitely Benjamin, right?
Yeah.
Why?
It's my name.
Now, he, of course, cost £50 million, which a lot of people were hammering Arsenal for in the summer, but I actually think Ben White has done pretty well up to this point. 9 Premier League starts. He's had 5 clean sheets in those 9 games. Now, he obviously, first game of the season against Brentford, was getting hammered for a lack of aerial ability. I think when he's paired with Gabriel and Tomiyasu, that's kind of covered for. I actually think Ben White is doing well. I don't think he's smashing it necessarily, but he's certainly doing better than Meh. So I'm going to put him tier 2. Quite a lot of clean sheets already. Next up is Emi Buendia, who I've got down here. Aston Villa bought for £38 million. That seems like a crazy amount of money, but last season in the Championship, 15 goals, 15 assists, unbelievable amounts of chances created, and I think Villa were definitely hoping for more at this point. We're 11 games into the season, he's made 7 starts for Villa, and I think it's 1 goal, 1 assist. I think he's done poorly so far. Villa as a whole have been really quite underwhelming. Obviously, so underwhelming. They've sacked their manager. 5 losses on the bounce, but they've been pretty poor across the course of 2021. 18 losses in 35 league games. So not only is he doing poorly, but the club has done pretty poorly. I would say I don't want to blame him entirely for this, but as their record ever signing, you know, he's close to having a whiff. He's like 4.5, isn't he? But I'm being kind to start with. Next up, we've got Christopher Ajer at Brentford, £13.5 million, and Christopher Hammer would not stop fucking banging on about him, would he? And kind of rightly so. You know, Brentford have clearly done really good business getting this guy through the door. I think they're 4th or 5th best in the league by expected goals against, and that's partly down to Christopher Ajer. Very bad news that he's now picked up that injury. He's going to be out till, what is it? I think early January, which could be a real hammer blow for Brentford, given that they're not on a particularly good run. You know, the result against Norwich was really bad. The result previous to that against Burnley was even worse. So I think he's been doing really well, but without him, I could see Brentford just slipping a little bit. Now, I don't think my early season prediction of them getting relegated is going to be even close, but I think he's vital, and therefore he's done well for him. Next up, we've got Wepoo, who of course came to Brighton as their record signing, I believe, for about £20 million. Now, he's only 23 years old, and obviously he does need time to settle into the league, but making just 1 Premier League start as the record signing, that's underwhelming, isn't it? Now, Brighton have obviously been flying. Graham Potter is a genius of a coach and has got a system that works to almost perfection for him. He's got players that can slot into multiple positions. I mean, we've seen, as I've said before on this show, Adam Lallana deployed as a deep-lying playmaker at times. We've seen Pascal Gross deployed as a fullback. things we never thought we'd see. But Wepoo hasn't got much game time. Now, this is going to be a running theme for me here, so I've got to set my stall out early, because there's quite a lot of these players that haven't played many games, and Wepoo is one of them. So do I put the players who aren't playing in having a whiff, or do I put them in meh, just because, I don't know, meh, they're not really playing? Do you know what? I'm going to put them in having a whiff. I'm going to say that players that aren't playing games are having a whiff, especially when they're club record signings. And Wepoo's going to go on to be a really good player for Brighton. We know why he's called the computer. He never does anything wrong. And certainly that performance against Liverpool looks like an improvement. So he could well jump up. But up to this date, 11 games into the season, he started one match in the Premier League. That's a whiff, I'm afraid. Next up, we've got Maxwell Cornet. I can't believe that Burnley managed to sign him. He's kind of played as an auxiliary left wing come striker at times, but he has got 4 goals in 5 Premier League starts, which is very impressive. He's obviously massively overperforming his expected goals, because half his finishes have been absolute worldies. But just because he's overperforming expected goals and scoring screamers doesn't change the fact he's obviously doing really well for Burnley. Without his goals, they'd be struggling immensely, and they're already 18th. Now, I know Burnley usually put it together after a while, but without Cornet, they would be in serious mud this season, so I'm putting him in doing well. Next up, we've got Romelu Lukaku, signed for £97.5 million. Now, I know he's got 3 goals, but he's only started 7 games, and I feel like 3 goals is kind of underwhelming. When he played that first game of the season, everybody was like, Lukaku's going to score hundreds. I had multiple bets saying he's going to score 25 plus. He's easily going to be the Premier League's top goal scorer, and that might still be the case. But in those first 7 Premier League starts, I was expecting a slightly larger output than 3 goals. I know that he was injured against Malmo with an ankle problem, and he hasn't recovered and hasn't returned yet. I think he's back in training and could well feature very soon, maybe even this weekend. But up to this point, again, making that very clear 11 games in, I've been a little bit underwhelmed with the goal output. I'm going to put him in meh, even though I still think he might end up in and around Salah. Salah's probably going to win the Golden Boot now, but in and around Salah. Next up then, we've got Crystal Palace, and we've got Mark Gahey, and he just has to go into that smashing it tier, doesn't he? He has been sensational. He started all 11 Premier League games under Patrick Vieira. He's allowed Crystal Palace to play in a totally different style to that we are used to of Crystal Palace playing in. He's been one of the most outstanding defenders in the league. He's become England under-21 captain. They're unbeaten in their last 6, including that monumental away win at Manchester City. Mark Gahey is the definition of Tier 1 so far this season. I mean, he just looks brilliant, doesn't he? Absolutely brilliant. We've got DAndre Gray up next, and this is an interesting one because £2.5 million, and I do think you have to take the fees into context somewhat when we're doing this, is a seriously cheap amount of money for Everton, and we know they have financial restraints put on them in the summer. That's why they didn't do an awful lot of business, and he started the season on fire. I think he's got 3 goals, 2 assists in 11 games, but he hasn't scored in his last 8. Now, he went off like a rocket, an absolute rocket ship. But since Dominic Calvert-Lewin has been injured, I think Calvert-Lewin has only started 3 Premier League games this season, scoring 3 goals. He's been out for a substantial amount of time. I think that has hindered DAndre Gray's output somewhat. Anyway, I still think he's doing well. But the drop-off is happening, and that's club-wide for Everton. So I hope he doesn't get caught up in it, because he could easily slip down to this sort of meta. But for £2.5 million, and I'm making that really clear, contextually, because of the fee, I'm putting him in doing well. You know, if they'd have paid 25-30, he'd probably be in that meh, wouldn't he? But that's cheap as chips, and he's already got 5 goal involvements. It's not too bad. Next up, we've got Dan James, and it's kind of irritating me that Dan James's little photo down here is looking sideways rather than forward like all of the other players on this list. I don't know why my OCD's kicking off about that, but sort that out, PremierLeague.com. £26 million was a large amount of money, I felt like, to spend on Dan James, and I think if you asked a lot of Man United fans, they would say that. His output has been poor at the start of the season. I think it's 7 games, maybe 1 assist. I don't think he's quite lived up to Leeds fans' expectations. And to be honest with you, because the fee was so bad, I think that this is a bit of a whiff. Is this worse than Buendia though? He's like 4.5 territory as well, isn't he? But he has played quite a lot of games. Leeds have been crap this season though. They have been crap. I feel like I'm feeling kind, so I'm going to put him in doing poorly, but he really probably should be in having a whiff. He really should. Buendia probably should be too. I'm kind of tempted to drop both of them down. I'm sorry, Buendia, but Dan James has changed my mind on you. You're also getting taken down a level. I need some tier 4s. Christ, I need some tier 4s. And we might well have one. Up next, Patson Daka at Leicester, yet to start a Premier League game. Bearing in mind he was brought in for a fairly substantial fee from the Red Bull group, wasn't he? Look, I know he hasn't started a Premier League game yet, but he did hit those 4 in the Europa League match. He did score as a substitute against Manchester United. He has played Carabao Cup minutes. I think he's got at least 100 minutes more than Wepoo, and he has scored those 4 goals. So I'm going to put him in tier 4. Maybe a little bit harsh again on Wepoo, but I need somebody in tier 4. Christ. I do think Daka in the future is going to be way up there, by the way. Way up there. It's just Jamie Vardy is undroppable, isn't he, for some reason. So Patson Daka tier 4 now, but by the end of the season, I'm calling him to be up around tier 2. Next up, we've got Ibrahimovi Konate. Just 3 Premier League starts for him as well, although he has kind of got Joe Gomez 4th choice. Now, I think Joe Gomez has yet to play a single minute of Premier League football. He might well push for a loan move in January, who knows. But, I mean, those 3 starts, he has played well. And he is inevitably going to be a really strong player. But didn't start an awful lot of games last season for Leipzig either, did he? I think it was just the 8 Bundesliga starts last season. Konate, he started more than Daka. I mean, tempted by meh. I'm going to have Konate in that because he's at least started multiple Premier League games, unlike Wepoo and Daka, and he is part of one of the best defences in the Premier League. I think they've got the 3rd best defensive record at this moment, Liverpool. So I'm going to have him in and around meh, but he's probably 3.5. I know people are telling me right now, in the comments right now, they're saying, he should be in 4. He should be in 4. He hasn't started many games. If you put Daka in 4, you got to put Konate in. Well, I'm putting him in meh. Get over it. Jack Grealish up next, the most expensive of all of the Premier League signings. £100 million. 9 starts, just the 1 goal, just the 2 assists so far this season. But historically, wingers under Pep Guardiola do take some time to bed into his system, don't they? Go back and look at, Mahrez early doors, Raheem Sterling early doors, Leroy Sané early doors. And you can see they need a period of adaptation, which is clearly what Grealish is going through. Having said all of that, he's been okay, isn't he? It's been okay. City are obviously immense. Grealish, for £100 million, he's been okay. Has he done anything that Raheem Sterling wouldn't necessarily have done so far this season? I'm not sure. He's obviously going to be a superstar for City. There's no denying that. But I think 11 games in, it's been all right. Next up, we've got Jadon Sancho. 8 appearances, only 3 starts in the Premier League for Jadon Sancho. Really, Ollie? Really? 3 starts, Ollie. After chasing this guy for 3 years and spending £73 million on him, we've started him 3 times. And there's reports in training he's being worked as a right wing. Really? Now, no goals, no assists. It's a whiff. But he's obviously going to smash it at United. Whether it's under Ollie or whether it's not, he is going to come good. His underlying numbers for the last few seasons are too unbelievable for that not to happen. But so far, Ollie, you've caused the whiff, in my opinion. Next up, we've got Joe Willock, £25 million. And let's not forget, by the way, that Steve Bruce said because they've signed Willock, they can't sign anyone else. Okay, so we've got to take that contextually into mind. 7 goals in 7 games at the back end of last season. He was on fire, on smoke, but he was massively overperforming his numbers. His underlying numbers stated that he was nowhere near 7 goals. Newcastle clearly didn't care, so they brought him in at a huge cost, and he has yet to contribute a goal so far this season. They're 19th. He hasn't scored, he hasn't assisted. Is that not a whiff? It has to be, right? Another whiff coming in next, I think. Milo Rashica at Norwich. Was this man not the Emi Buendia replacement? I think he was. Or at least he was supposed to be combining with Josh Sargent to be able to replace some of Emi Buendia's output. And it's not really happened, has it? He struggled to get into the side. When he's got into the side, he's been pretty unimpactful. Still yet to register a goal contribution of any sorts for Norwich in the Premier League. That's unimpressive. Norwich as a whole have been unimpressive. I think Dean Smith will get more out of him. I hope for Norwich fans' sake Dean Smith gets more out of him. Because £9 million is a lot of money to a club like Norwich. A lot of money to a lady like Delia Smith. I think that's been a poor signing, sadly. We've got Adam Armstrong up next at Southampton. I think when we saw him start the season, first game, we would have been like smashing it. Absolutely smashing it. But since then, he's only scored one more goal, and that came last week. So it was a 9-10 game week gap between those two goals. Admittedly, the most recent strike was absolutely glorious. And I think we probably expected a little bit more from Adam Armstrong, given his non-penalty expected goals last season were off the charts in the Championship. Comfortably the best finisher in the Championship last season, and he's already underperforming expected goals by 2. At this stage, expected goals said he should have scored 4. He's only netted 2. I'm going to say he's been underperforming. I wish I'd have kind of said underperforming rather than doing poorly. That would have been a bit fairer, but I'm going to put him in tier 4. Likewise, I think Christian Romero at £42 million probably deserves to go in there, given how poor Tottenham's defensive unit has been so far this season, particularly under Nuno. I think they're 12th in the league in terms of defensive output. I mean, like, Konate hasn't started as many games as him, costs less than him, but Romero, with 7 league starts, just hasn't impressed me that much. I didn't think it was going to work in a Nuno system. He was way too active at Atalanta last season, the most active defender in Europe. I know he was Serie A's best defender, and I think that will be improved working under Antonio Conte, because Conte is going to want one active defender in the system, and then he goes and pulls his hamstring or his quad on international duty with Argentina, which is going to be a hammer blow for Spurs. So I think so far it's been pretty poor, but I think Conte will push him up in and around tier 2 by the end of the season. Loser is up next then at Watford. I think this is one of their most costly ever signings as well, and 1 Premier League start. I mean, what's going on there? It's just not working out at all, is it, so far? I mean, hopefully Claudio Ranieri can get something out of him, because at Nantes, I think there was not a lot of hype, but I think quite a lot of people thought he'd be better than he is so far. A lot of their fans were talking about an adaptation physically with the Premier League, like Yuri Tielemans had to go through. I mean, that adaptation needs to start happening, because at the moment he's not even playing. I think the next man, Kurt Zouma, is going to be another tier 1 candidate for me. And I'm going to stick him down there, smashing it. Kurt Zouma at West Ham. He was quite expensive at £30-odd million, or £29.8 million. And he is the wrong side of 26, but I still think he's smashing it. You know, he's put together 7 Premier League starts, but West Ham are now 3rd in the league. Ogbonna has done his ACL, so he's going to start consistently throughout the whole season, guaranteed. And what Kurt Zouma is brilliant at is defending, getting his body in the way, using his physical gifts, tackling, blocking, clearing. What he's not brilliant at is carrying the ball out, splitting the lines with passes, and that's not what he's asked to do at West Ham. David Moyes knows exactly what he wants out of Kurt Zouma, and he's getting exactly that. It looks like a brilliant signing, a match made in heaven right now, Kurt Zouma and David Moyes. Next up, we've got Jose Sarr, signed from Olympiacos by Wolves, who didn't spend loads of money on a single player, really, in the summer. I think he was about £7 million, Jose Sarr, and Wolves are obviously playing really well under Bruno Lage. He's already 2 goals ahead of expected goal numbers, Jose Sarr, so I think he's doing well. Rui Patricio was not an easy role to fill. Another Portuguese body into the squad. Jorge Mendes, take your hat off. I think he's doing well. Congratulations. All right, so that was my tier list of the summer signings and how they're performing so far at game week 11. Quite a lot of whiffers in there, it has to be said, given that these were the most expensive players from each club. We've got 7 of the 20 in tier 5. Oh dear. But what do you guys at home think of the tier list? Let me know in the comments below. And I want to know your best and worst signings, remember, so I can steal them and read them out on Sunday Vibes. I'll be in the comments for about the first hour. Hit the like button, hit subscribe. Thanks very much for watching. See you later. Cheers. Cheers. What's that? Wait. Oh, God, bye.